G'day, legends, and welcome to the Celtic Down Under podcast. I'm your host, Jared, and joining me tonight is Sean. How are you, Sean?
Good, Jared. Yeah, still sweating like nothing else here. It's not rained since before Christmas. My garden is dying. Someone send me some sky water, please.
One positive, you'll never have a Rangers fan / Sevco fan rock up at your house if there's no water, so you're all good. So that's a
Yeah.
positive. Silver lining, Sean, silver linings.
Well, my toilet's working, so they might actually.
There goes that idea. Brilliant. Yeah, so everyone, thanks for tuning in for the Celtic Down Under podcast as usual. We appreciate the support. We're trying to grow our YouTube channel. So if you are watching this on YouTube and you haven't already done so, please hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. We've just cracked through the 750 odd mark on the YouTube channel. We're trying to get up to over 1,000 on that front. So that's the goal for the rest of this season, to get to 1,000 by the end of it. So easily achievable. Come on, Celtic family, get around us.
Sounds
So
good.
what we want to do is on today's podcast, just jump into the comments, put in any questions you've got, any topics you want us to discuss, just add them in there, and we'll do our best to get to them. And we'll crack on to what we've got here. Shane's in the comments. Have a good pod tonight, Shane. Lads, from Shane. Miss you, Shane.
Take easy, buddy.
Had to stir him. So we'll start off. Since our last pod, we've had 2 games. So Celtic 4, St Mirren 0. What we'll do is we'll go through it. So the goal scorers on that game were Abada in the 15th minute, Kyogo in the 35th and the 53rd minute, and Turnbull in the 86th minute. So Sean, what was your overall take on that game?
It was comfortable, wasn't it? It was business as usual. It feels like we're now so far removed from that game that it was like a year ago. So much has happened since then in Scottish football. We've had
Mate.
players coming in and out. We've had cup upsets for historical cup upsets. We've had all sorts of stuff going on. I'm not even sure I can remember what the Abada goal was like, to be honest. The thing that stood out the most for me was that Kyogo goal, the chip, obviously, which has been touted as a potential goal of the season. I don't know if you've seen it back, but I've watched it like 100 times, and every time I watch it, I'm like, right, okay, what's going on here? You know,
it's something different every time you watch it too, Sean.
Yeah.
It's the weight of the pass the first time. And you think the vision, how did he see that? Then how did he execute it? Then he did it on his weaker foot.
Exactly.
Then it's like Kyogo, when he doesn't think and just does. What made him think to chip the keeper in that situation? To have it just come down under the crossbar. There's something different every time. It's just unbelievable goal. Great teamwork there, and a goal, made in Japan, basically.
Yeah, I keep watching it to try and find the frame where Kyogo looks at the goalkeeper. And at no point from when the camera goes to Kyogo do you see him looking at where the goalkeeper is. So he's chipped the goalkeeper without just some sort of sixth sense or seventh sense about where the goalkeeper actually is. Because it must be some point, but it's not in frame at any time. He's looking at the goalkeeper. He's just absolutely, I don't want to say blind, because he knows where the keeper is, obviously, but without looking, is just lobbed the keeper perfectly.
To me, it's one that I think would be a peripheral vision sort of thing. Like, as he's making his run, he's like, okay, focusing, make sure he's on side, checking out all the other stuff going on, and just as he's like looking for the ball coming through, he'd be like looking peripheral vision out here. Okay, keeper's on his line, he's on his line. Okay, peripherals is coming off now, so I've got to chip him.
Mm-hmm.
Chip him or go through his legs. There is 2 options in that situation. You picked right.
Yeah, and who in their right mind chips the goalkeeper instead of going for a low shot?
Celtic strikers.
Exactly.
All these Celtic strikers.
That are absolutely.
I can remember 3 or 4 that have done that in the last few years, in the last couple of while. So we all know about Larson's chip, but since then, off the top of my head, ones I can think of, Kyogo's done it. I think he's done it twice now.
Yeah,
he did one last season as well.
3 maybe, 2 or 3.
It's 2 that I can remember anyway. Probably is the 3rd one that I'm missing. Then you had, what's his name? Did it? Edouard chipped the guy once.
Dembele did it against.
Dembele did it. They were the 3 I was going to bring up that I can remember.
Yeah, no, he's on some form, Kyogo. Like some of this rumours about Giakoumakis trying to walk back his transfer request is interesting because he's probably just sitting watching as well and going, okay, fair enough. I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have been able to score that goal.
What's
And
that
that's him.
situation there, Sean, on that? We'll just jump onto that quickly with the whole Giakoumakis thing. For those who don't know, rumours are floating around that didn't like the bid he got, the contract offer he got. So his agent's gone out to drum up something, and he's like, "No, I don't like these moves I'm getting linked with. Oh, can I stay?" And Ange just told him, "That jog on, son. Basically, if you don't want to be here, see you later." That's the rumor they're talking about. So what were you going to say, Sean?
Yeah, just saying that he's probably like after Kyogo's scored those 4 goals in the last week, he's probably just thinking, look, fair enough. This guy is actually on some really good form. Yeah, and look, to be fair, if he wasn't injured or if he wasn't, agitating for a move, he probably would have started one of the games in the last week, and Kyogo probably wouldn't be on 4 goals because, for example, Kyogo gets taken off at half time and against Morton, so could have had even more. I was checking back because that's him on 20 goals now for the season, Kyogo, and I was thinking when that's the same as he scored last year when he was our top scorer. So he's now got, I checked it, hold on, I've written the number down. 21 games left potentially if we progress to the Scottish Cup final. So 21 games left to play, and he's on 20 goals.
You grabbed something there that I was going to say anyway, but it was like last season he had the like he basically played half a season. Kyogo did, and he scored 20 goals. This season, we're all like, so many people are talking like, Kyogo's not in great form, blah, blah, blah. He's been struggling. Yet he's at 20 goals again at the halfway point of the season. We played everyone in the league twice already now. So at the same point, he's at 20 goals. It's like, okay, cool. Now let's see him go on and do it over a full season, because we've got to remember this time last year, he was at the back of 18 months of solid playing. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how many he goes for this season.
I also was curious about so the benchmark. I don't know if it was the same for you, but when I was younger, the chat was always teams were looking for a 30 goal striker, and that was the kind of round number that was always used. I feel like football's changed a little bit since then, and strikers are less. More than just goal scorers these days. It's not the same as the Darren Jackson and John Robertson days. So I went back and checked how many since Larson and Viduka, who would consistently score back when we were talking about 30 goal strikers, how many players have actually scored 30. We've got Hartson straight after them, scored 30. Scott McDonald in 2008, 31. Gary Hooper, 2013, he scored 31. Chris Commons the following year got 32. Griffiths in 2016 got 40 goals total, and the last person to get over 30 was Dembele with 17 goals. And
On that though, Sean, I'm going to jump in right here. Kyogo doesn't take penalties. A lot of those guys would have taken penalties. That's the spooky part. Like for me, just hearing you rattle through guys, Hartson could take penalties. Viduka would take penalties. McDonald would take penalties here and there. And you keep going through, Dembele would take them. Lee Griffiths loved a penalty. Kyogo doesn't take penalties. How many penalties can you remember him taking at the club since he's been here?
I don't believe he's taken one, has he? Unless there was a shootout.
I can't remember any for the life of me, and maybe one, but even that I doubt. I can't remember him taking a penalty ever.
No.
It's either been Giakoumakis, Juranovic, or Moy. They've been the 3 main guys, and Turnbull took 1 or 2 early last year as well. So that's it. Like I can't. He's getting this many, and he doesn't have any he doesn't take penalties. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that's I believe he's 9th in the European Golden Boot race. He's not going to get anywhere near Erling Haaland at number 1, but still to be 9th in Europe is pretty impressive. And as you say, without taking penalties, because Lauren Shankland would come in at I don't know, whatever position. Lauren Shankland being 1 goal behind him, but Lauren Shankland has scored I don't know, 7 or 8 penalties. I don't know what the actual number is, something like that.
He could have taken a few.
Yeah. So
it's always it's the stat patterns that strikers do, Sean.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I don't know, because even anytime you take a penalty, you're more than 50-50 to score, right? But the problem is we don't get many penalties. So Like, well, we had 4 this season, so even if he had taken and scored every one, he'd still only be on 24 goals, right? Yeah.
That's
I
Tavernier
think
a couple of years ago, isn't it?
that's right. We made that joke in one of the preseason pods. Like, we were saying, who's going to be top scorer this year? And I said, whoever's taking penalties for Rangers. And like, it's not far off, right?
Facts. So
Yeah.
anyway, well, just with the St Mirren game, I just want to touch. I was going to touch on the player, but I just mentally blanked out all of a sudden. So give me 20 seconds or so to get back to what I was going to say.
Was it
Actually,
Juranovic?
what's that?
Was it Juranovic because it's his last game?
Yeah, I was going. That's it. Juranovic playing left back
Mm-hmm.
after the game against Rangers. We were all like, "Oh yeah, this is we don't want to play him at left back." He did a good job there for me, considering it was his last pretty much last game for the club. But the other one I wanted to touch on, Kobayashi,
Mm-hmm.
starting at left centre back, the balance that brought to our back line
Mm-hmm.
between that game and then again on the weekend against Greenock Morton, him and Starfelt together building that partnership. It's been good to see.
Yeah.
Starfelt, before you jump in with whatever you're going to say, Starfelt, I think in the St Mirren game, the first 15 minutes or so, he looked a little iffy because he's back on the right and he's been playing in the left for a while. So it's just, okay, let's just adjust body position. Let's just get used to being back over this side of the field. But then from about that 15-minute mark against St Mirren onwards all through the weekend, I was happy with him playing on the right. But over to you, Sean.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he was overly tested. Kobayashi defensively, there'll be harder games than St Mirren and Morton to prove himself in. If we're a Champions League club, at least with Champions League aspirations, so that's not the level that you're going to be tested defensively. But he did look a lot better than Starfelt from a technical perspective. Like, he could pass the ball with both feet. I'm told he's a left-footed player, but sometimes it was hard to tell because he was doing some quick one-touch passes with his right as well. So I was kind of, is he actually, like, is he trained to be left-footed or is he naturally left? I couldn't quite
It's the
tell.
technical ability of the Japanese players that you can't Japanese and Korea in particular, like talking about Asian football, they tend to be very versatile both feet. As you saw with that pass we're talking about from Hatate earlier,
Mhm.
he hit it with his weak foot, but he was still inch perfect on the pass. It's the same with Kobayashi playing there at left centre back. Like, he's naturally a left footer, but he can
Mhm.
hit a nice long right ball. He's good on his feet there as well. So
Yeah, his passing was really crisp. It was like good pace, good direction. Like, it was good. I think I know as much as we're saying, put Starfelt on his natural side. I think even on his natural side, Starfelt is not technically as good as Kobayashi and Carter Vickers are. So I could quite easily see him being the partner for Carter Vickers in the future. I know Ange doesn't like to chop and change centre backs, but if Kobayashi had been here when Starfelt's hamstring was done, he'd have been in the team ever since, in my opinion. It's hard to say. Like I said, we've not seen him being tested defensively, really, but in terms of his technical ability.
yep. Well, yeah, well, you look at the two teams we're playing, let's be honest, but he wasn't really challenged much. But yeah, it's one of those things that the only thing I can hear, and it's just come up in the comments as well, was that he wasn't that great with the headers.
Mm-hmm.
Give him time. Like, for me, I'm just glad to see him get 180 minutes of football into his legs in our system and start to establish himself into the team. For me, that's more important than a couple of misplaced headers against St Mirren in a League Cup game. Like,
Mm-hmm.
was it League Cup or was it League? It
St
was
Mirren
League.
was the league, and
League,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
gotcha. Yeah, like, I'm not too worried about a couple of misplaced headers. Like, let's be honest, we've got a
Oh,
clean sheet again, so we're okay.
on Mahesh's point there, like Carter Vickers and Starfelt are both the word I would use is stereotypical imperious in the air. But if you think back, that was not something that Starfelt had from day one. That's been trained into him, I think. And Starfelt is very good. He's very aggressive in the air and does very well on those. And that's a system thing. That's not. I would assume Ange's signing players that he can get that into them. If you think back, I actually believe, it's hard to say for sure, but I believe Starfelt was signed on his passing accuracy, if you look at the stats, and
Yep.
he was not very good in the air. At first, he was letting balls bounce and things like that. But in the last, say, year, I think, he's been very good at aggressive in the air. And it's surprisingly, and it's to the point where it's his now strongest asset, and it's the reason why he stays in the team. So I think what Mahesh is saying is, I think it is because it's a system thing that will be trained into Kobayashi if it's not already part of his game.
Yep, agree with you on that. The thing you're saying about Starfelt and his headers as well is, for me, what I found funny was, like, I don't want to hear the commentators saying the centre backs' names or the defensive midfielder, the number six's names during a game. The less I hear of that, the better, in my opinion, because it means we're pinning them in with their press or we're keeping them out wide, keeping them out of the danger zone. But the thing that I notice is, like, Carter Vickers, you notice him more when you're watching the game on the TV. He just, like, your eyes are drawn to him because of the presence he's got. Starfelt, not so much. And there's been games where I've been watching and all of a sudden I'm like, I can't remember Starfelt doing anything. And then all of a sudden you hear the commentator go, Starfelt with a great header. Starfelt later on. Starfelt clears it with a header. And you just hear that a few times and suddenly it's like, okay, cool. He's winning his headers. He's doing his job. Happy days. And I don't really worry about him too much. But it's like, for me, listening, if the commentators are saying their name and he's clearing it with his head, that's great. But yeah, well, I think the easiest thing is we should just crack on to the next game. But before we do that, I just want to, you mentioned about Kobayashi and Carter Vickers playing together. Well, realistically, with Jens pretty much out the door, as we've got it later on the list, but I'll just jump it up now anyway. Looks like his loan's been cancelled and he's going to Schalke in Germany. He's going back over there. So if that's the case, so be it. He flooded to deceive as far as I'm concerned. I'd rather have Kobayashi in alongside Carter Vickers and Starfelt, those three battling it out for two spots, and then having Welsh and Bosun Lawwell playing it for that fourth option in the rotation. Yeah, for me, that's the way to go now. So yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, no, there's no room for Jens anymore, especially in the way, not necessarily as in terms of as a criticism of him as an individual, but in terms of the way the squad is developing.
Plus, Jens is an our player. Let's be honest. All the other guys there are our players to build about. So, yeah. Something you said as well, though, about the system, right? I was just thinking while you were talking before, and it's just popped back into my head. The centre backs being good in the air. I'm going to go right back to the old Barcelona days with Ange at Brisbane Roar. His two centre backs there. He had Matt Smith and he had, I can't remember the guy's first name, De Vere. They were his two centre backs. Dominant in the air. Anything come in the box, just header it, clear it, and then they just be off and racing. And then it was the same when he was with the national team. He had a couple of dominant centre backs, and it's the same here. It is Ange's system, so he was spot on with that as well, Sean. But I was just thinking back further, a couple of steps back further, just to tie it all in.
You see, and it's something that when I went to the game in Dundee when we won 9-0, it's the defenders do it in the warm up, which is something I've not seen before. Is they attack the high balls in a warm up. I've never seen a team do that in a warm up before. The way they were doing it, but they had the four defenders in a line, and whatever coach was just putting balls in the air, floating high balls, and the defenders had to absolutely attack it. And that's so it's clearly something that's coached and not just part of these guys' natural games, whether it is or not. But it's more to it than that. And another thing that came out of the St Mirren game that kind of links to the Morton game is something that we've kind of missed in the first half of the season was Turnbull and his shots from outside the box. We've not. I remember we had that in the first half of last season, and then since Turnbull ripped his hamstring, we've not really been seeing it much, have we?
Yep.
Like it's kind of dropped out the actual factors of as a threat for our team without Turnbull in the team.
Yep, spot on. Just got a comment here from Peter Caliero. I think I've said it properly. Sorry if I butchered your name, mate. But Eric Partaloo, I thought he was a defensive midfielder at Brisbane Roar in front of those two I mentioned, but he can play centre back as well. So I may be wrong, but yeah, that's the sort of setup where he had that tall central mid in front of the two centre backs. So, yep.
Mhm.
Just gonna go through some comments here quickly before we crack on to the other one. So, all right, let's have a look here. So, Andrew Galea, GG wasn't fit at all until the winter break last season, and Kyogo was injured after, so both played basically one out without competition. So that's talking about the whole striker situation that we are discussing early on, and GG apparently retracting his wanting to leave.
Mhm.
And then Andrew's also put in here, Jens is gone apparently. Yep, we just touched on that. Geez, anyone think this is the Andrew show with all these comments here? He's going on. Our squad seems to slowly getting taller and younger, which is great to see. I think when we looked at the overall squad average ages, I looked at about a month into the season once the transfer window was shut, and the average age of everyone's teams in the SPFL, we were the third youngest. So
Mhm.
you look at the levels we're playing at with the third youngest squad, which is good for when Ange goes, there's extra levels he wants to get the team to. That's good to see that there's still room to go and there's still levels and progression can happen. So that's good.
On the subject of young, tall players, that I looked at the highlights of that Korean boy that we're signing. He is a physical player. He is. He looks. He kind of reminded me of like I couldn't quite put my finger on. I was searching for like a ex Celtic striker that he looked like, and I couldn't come up with one. The closest I could come up with in terms of ex Celtic strikers, he was like a more decisive Samaras or like a more mobile Vinegar Vesselink.
I was
Uh,
going to say Van Hooijdonk. He reminds
yeah,
me a bit
and
of him.
yeah, that was the other name that came out of my head, but I think Van Hooijdonk was just a bit more technical than this kid looks in his highlights anyway. The other one that I thought of was Lyndon Dykes. He kind of reminded me of him a little bit as well. He was a big physical guy, good technique, playing with his back to goal a lot, but he was really dynamic in terms of what he could do when he had his back to the goal. Like he could take it in and turn the defender, or he could just play a quick one-touch pass, or he could hold it up and he could get. So he scored some good headers as well, and he was taking shots with both feet. So like the guy, obviously we've been talking about the physicality a lot, but there's his technical ability looks good too.
Yeah, on him, on Oble, we're going to talk to him in probably about 5 more minutes, 5-10 minutes. We'll get to that topic. So I'll give my rebuttal and opinion on that then, Sean. But yeah, what you said there is pretty much quite a lot of what I was going to say.
Yeah, sorry, I just when Andrew mentioned it, I thought it was a good link.
Yeah, we've got Mahesh has gone here. Kobayashi is a deceptively big unit. Sure is. And then Andrew with another comment was, I think Johnson could easily play centre half in this Celtic team if required. Agree, but he tended to play, if he was in a back three, he'd play right centre back, like right sided guy in a back three. So I wouldn't play him as an actual full centre back unless we were desperate or someone got sent off. And you looked at the bench, and if your only options on the bench were, okay, we put in, someone who hasn't played in ages like Jens, or we can bring Ralston in, push Johnson inside if need be, or put the Bricky even at centre back, right centre back. There's options there. So, but I don't think Andrew even let it get that far. So, yeah, we've got some good stuff going on there. So,
Yeah, I think Wata was signed as a potential fill in at centre back as well, right? I know he seemed to be signed as a number 6, but I believe he's played there before, which is probably part of Jens moving on as well.
yep.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just having a look at it. I think there's another comment here from Juan Douglas. Hey, boys, did any of you see John Hughes' tweet about GG? And he just came on, so you may have spoke about it. Yeah, we discussed it about 5-10 minutes ago there, one. But yeah, John's got the good oil. Like he's pretty well. I'm not going to say he's well connected in terms of he's in the no agent sort of thing. If he says something like that, he's actually got some contacts at the club because of who his old man is and everything like that. So John wouldn't have put that out on Twitter just for the sake of just shits and giggles and trying to stir everyone up. So He knows what he's talking about, and yeah, he's a good source to get there. All right, so we'll crack on. So Celtic 5, Greenock Morton 0. Goals to Moy in the 18th minute, Kyogo in the 21st, Turnbull in the 42nd, Kyogo at 46 minutes, so an extra time, and Moy in the 84th minute. So I think the key talking points, we don't need to bang on about this game because, I did the match day with Axom as a part of our partnership on that. So I've said my bit on there. Sean, you had your say on the 10-minute video you do on a Monday or Tuesday, Quickie with Sean, which is what's your background on here, just plug in the episode that went out yesterday.
Come
There it is.
Inverted axis.
So, yeah, you've had your say on there. I think the main thing for me that I wanted to touch on is, okay, it was good that they're not a great competition. The two things for me that I want to really get to is we talk about every week. I have no idea how the referee said that was a penalty for that we end up converting, because as far as I'm concerned, and I said that on there, the VAR took pretty much 2 minutes to review the incident and then refer it to the referee to then go and look at the monitor to give a penalty. It's never a penalty. I think those two people, the VAR ref and the referee, were the only two people in the whole world that would have said that. Like, disgraceful decision. And Morton it was good to see Morton actually come out and play football against us and have a crack, because it's a cup game. What are they going to do? So it was really good to see them come out and do that. But at the same time, I think that was a bit of a, I'm not going to say like what Dougie Imrie said or whatever, their gaffer, that ruined the game. No, it didn't ruin the game, but it was a momentum killer for them.
Yeah. Yeah, look, these guys are professional footballers. They should be used to responding to bad refereeing decisions. The one thing they wouldn't be used to is going 1-0 down in front of a massive team like Celtic. So I guess the point there is it wasn't the penalty that caused it. It was whenever they went 1-0 down against us or 2-1 down against us, they were going to crumble because of their poor mentality. I don't think, if you're not used to bad refereeing decisions, then you must be from a different league. Is my kind of point there. Yeah, sorry, Jared. Yeah.
Breaking news. I was a Celt.
Was signed. Oh yeah, number 19.
Number 19, he's signed. There it is. It's official. We've got a striker in the building. Happy days. We'll discuss that in a minute anyway. But yeah, I think overall, Mahesh has summed up this perfectly. Morton had a bigger crack at Celtic than most in the SPFL. All credit to them for their bravery. I want to give them a pat on the back sort of thing for coming and playing football, not the anti-football thing that you sit behind the ball. And then also the fact that they brought one hell of a crowd.
Biggest
crowd we've had at our stadium this season. So good to see him come down the road, support their team. They're probably walking in expecting to lose, but at least they had a crack in the first 15, 16, 17 minutes until we got that penalty. And then we went up a couple of rungs, but that's football. Like, that's what happens in the cup when you're playing against teams. We can't all be, it's just not a Darvel situation, is it?
No. And look, whoever decided that Kyogo was man of the match was watching a different game. Aaron Moy absolutely strolled through that game. Like, he had the ball on a string. I don't know what his stats are, but he was just like, he had his slippers on. Do you know what I mean? Like, he was absolutely strolling it.
Yep.
But it's kind of like old days when you have like players like Russell Atape just strolling, the old piano joke. On the kind of, I hadn't watched it live, but I did watch it back, and so I started doing the timing on the VAR decision, and there's more than a minute between the handball and the ball going out of play. So there's more than a minute between those two things happening, and then there's still a full 2 minutes before after that, before he even asks the referee to go and look at the monitor. So, like, how's he not looked at it already? Like, within that 1 minute when the ball's still in play? Why
It's
is he
piss
having to?
poor.
Yeah, it's awful, man. And like the full thing, like from the handball to the penalty being scored, was literally 5 minutes. It was a full 5 minutes it took to get to that point. Like this,
Shambolic.
in regards to the handball rule, I think the problem with there's nobody in the world believes that was a penalty. The second one in the second, there's one in the second half, maybe a penalty. That one was more of a penalty, I thought, that wasn't given. But I think the problem is that there's so many interpretations of the handball rule. There's what we think it should be. There's what we believe it is. There's what the referees think it is. There's what IFAB think it is, and there's what TV. And there's all these, and nobody is in the same page around this rule, and it's just causing chaos.
Speaking of IFAB, then we'll quickly use that as a link to something we're going to discuss later on, but we'll jump it up now as well. Is apparently IFAB are talking about trialing crowds hearing the referees when they're talking to the VAR bunker at the
Yeah.
Club World Cup in Morocco. So that's something that they are talking about now. There's a video on YouTube from the A League from a few years back when it was like a 3 or 4 minute video. I'd play it on here, but we'll cop all sorts of trouble with YouTube and the
Mm-hmm.
rules and regulations and stuff for content and everything. But at the end of the day, what you see is the referee's talking. He's like, all right, this is the decision. Cool. Should I look at it on the monitor just to sell it? Okay, cool. Let's go. And he runs over quickly, looks at it. 30 seconds later, bang, ready to go. So
Yeah.
you can jump on and look that up. I can't remember the ref's name was, but yeah, just search A League referee, whatever, and they'll bring it up. It's
Yeah,
all
it
in
was
there.
the one that went to the EPL, I think.
Jared Gillett, who went?
Yeah, it was him. Yeah, it's
What a
quite good.
name. What a great
Yeah.
name.
And look, we're already at the moment. What we're doing when referees are got their finger to the ear, what we're lip reading them anyway. Do you know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
may as well just make them up. It just gives us more clarity. We're already second guessing from their lips, so might as well. Like, how can it? A lack of more transparency can only be good. It works in other sports. It works so well in rugby. I don't know how it could be a bad thing, really.
Works well in rugby union with the TMO. Works well in the NRL, so the rugby league with the bunker that they go to. Cricket, they've got they can go to the ref as well. There's all these different options that they've got, but let them hear what they're talking about. Like, that's the key thing. And if they're going to let them hear it, that's great. Perfect. We'll all know what's going on. But then at the same time, if you're going to open up that bit, open them up to not necessarily full on press conferences, but if there's a couple of things there, let the refs talk to the post match. The managers have got to do post match interviews. Why not the refs as well? If there's a controversial moment, let's be like, oh, a player got sent off. Perfect example would have been the last Glasgow derby. I would have loved to have heard even a 30-second snip from the ref. Oh, so Connor Goldson, handball. Why wasn't it given? Just to hear their reasoning behind it. Like,
Yeah.
then you can realize, oh, okay, it's because the ref's a raging Hun and, is cheating, or honest mistake, or he didn't see it because it was blocked by another view. Okay, if that's the case, then why didn't the VAR pick up on it? And then you can work out these problems off the back of that. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's there's a whole bunch of workarounds there, but I'd love that as well.
I think the best sport to get a lesson on from that is NFL, because the referees explain every decision, and not in granular detail, but they explain very clearly. And what they'll also explain as well is they'll say, even after they've reviewed things, they'll go, there wasn't clear evidence to overturn. So like, they'll just say like, we can't see it clearly, so we're just sticking with our original decision. So, and they'll communicate that, and everyone's
That's
like, okay, fine.
They
Like,
say that in the NRL as well down here. Like, say if there's a try or something like that, and someone goes to ground the ball or score, and they bobble it, they go, well, it was sent up as a try. We've got insufficient evidence to overturn it, so we've got to go with the referee's decision on the field.
yeah,
Same sort of thing, but they just openly admit it. So it
yeah.
is what it is.
Every other sport's fine with that. A League, if they can't say umpire's call, they put it up on the review, umpire's call.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine. We're used to it in every other sport. Like, just do it, man.
Yeah,
We're
anyway.
okay with it. We're okay with you explaining you can't see it. We're okay with you explaining you're not sure. It's okay.
Yep,
But when you're making decisions, we'd like to hear a bit of rationale. It helps us understand.
exactly. All right, so we'll leave that topic there. But uh, do you think the last question on that, though, Sean, I've got for you is:
Hmm.
should it be implemented in Scottish football? And would the Lanarkshire Referees Association and the SFA allow it? That's the real question.
I think they'd be terrified of it, to be totally honest with you. But
That's
yeah, we
my
should have it.
thoughts as well.
Yeah, they'd be scared of it, and they should be scared of it. Transparency is not a good thing for them.
Yep, 100%. All right, so we get into the transfer section. So we just touched on it. No Hyung Gu has signed for Celtic, 2.5 million, I think it was. So we'll bring up some of the comments here about him. So Andrew has said apparently O is good at pressing from the front. So talking about him, where you said your bit earlier on him, Sean. What I like about O is he's got that physical presence about him. He's like a Kyogo type in terms of the way he presses, and he can do that. He's decent at link up play, but he's probably a better fit to the system for what Ange wants from his strikers than Giakoumakis is in terms of the pressing and the bringing other teammates into it. And I'll bring up another Andrew comment here, which is 6'1" striker and only 21 years old. Great news. That ties into my next thing I was going to say is that, yes, he's 6'1". He's a young striker, which is good because Kyogo, turned 27, 28 the other day.
28, yeah.
So that gives us the next one up as we constantly talk about, like, you want to have your starting striker or your starting player, but then you want to have the younger guy to come through to take their spot if the striker moves on, and then you bring your production line. So that's perfect instead of a 28 and 21-year-old. The other thing with O as well is that I was reading an article during the week where it said that at 18, he deliberately chose to do his 18-month military service to get it over and done with because he wanted to be a professional footballer and be able to make his move to Europe as soon as possible. So knowing that, we don't have that hanging over us as well, where
Mm.
you need Son Heung-min at Tottenham. He got an exemption because because Korea won some Asian Cup or East Asian Games or something like that, so he didn't have to do it. But
Yeah, Keeson Young for us was when they won the medal at the Olympics. They got an exception.
yep. So
Yes.
yeah, we don't have to worry about that, which is good. Let's go back to that market again in the summer or whatever and see what else is out there.
Yeah,
Michael
that
Ross.
that
Oh,
military service thing really takes the value of some players if they've not done it.
O is in. Gartsky. O just announced. And then Mahesh, I'm going to come to you with the last comment here because it's a lot of detail, but I like it. O is an upgrade on GG in terms of mobility and just as tall, but does he have the knack of getting on the end of things in the 6-yard box like GG? That's to be confirmed and to be seen, that comment, because does he have the ability in the box? He's played how many games has he played as an actual out and out striker? One season last year.
Yeah, he's
He's
young,
played
so
90 something games, but the majority of his games that he's played have been in the military league where they just throw players into any position, and he was playing pretty much the Days of Maeda role, playing on the left wing. So
mhm.
actually going into his club where he was at Suwon Blue Wings and playing as an out and out striker last season, yeah, he's actually a decent striker from what I've seen and what I've heard.
Yeah. And then kind of on the point of how it affects the squad as well, we obviously had Maeda up front when Kyogo went off at the weekend, and we just didn't quite have the same, like, it didn't work as well, if you know what I mean, as it does when we have Kyogo or Giakoumakis. So I feel like maybe as much as we've been saying, okay, Maeda's our third choice striker, I think really outside of the European games, it just doesn't work well for him when it's so compressed in the middle of the pitch, which is why he kind of works better on the wing for us. So hopefully, having that more of a presence is going to give us a better balance, whether Giakoumakis stays or not. And certainly give us, if Giakoumakis stays, great, we've got three strikers. If he doesn't, then a better option, I think, than having Maeda as the backup.
Have to laugh and bring up this comment from Juan Douglas as well. Lads, why are you giving it on O? Surely that's the Rangers manager's job to make sure there's better transfer dealings. I was reading that while you were talking, Sean. I was like trying not to piss yourself laughing while you were talking, so I didn't ruin it. But
did you see
yeah, cool.
the Photoshop thing? They photoshopped the Cantwell to make him look more buff, but they put his head on someone else's body so that he looks, because he looks like
He
so
looks wee.
slight. Yeah, he's about 10 stone or something by the looks of him. And they'd photoshopped him onto somebody else's body for his unveiling picture, which they did in the past for Morelos in the opposite direction, put him onto Kamara's body. Yeah. It's put in the run sheet. I don't know if you want to talk about it, but Joey Dawson as well.
Yeah, let's just go to that.
Yeah, so I watched the highlights of, because it was a good win for the B team. They're top of the league now after they beat Trinent, who were above them. So it's now Celtic, Sevco, and Trinent all on 51 points, but the Celtic lads are top on goal difference. But Joey Dawson has now scored 8 goals in his last 5 games in the west of the, what's it called? This lower Scotland Lowland League. That's it. So he's now scored 8 goals in his last 5 games. And when I was watching the highlights, I was thinking like he looks a lot more physically developed than everyone else on that pitch. So he's now at the point where he's scoring goals and in his highlights. So I can't really see too much of his game, but he looks physically developed and he's now scoring goals. So I think, should he be coming in as an option now, or does he need to get swiftly put out on loan? What do you think?
For me, I think it's all going to depend on what happens in the next, what was there, 5 days left or so of the transfer window? Like what happens with Giakoumakis? Because if now that O's in the building, if Giakoumakis moves on, he's been linked with Atlanta over in the MLS now. That's what it looks like the move's going to be. The move to Japan looks like it's fallen through. But if he leaves, so then we're going to have Kyogo with O as the backup. Then I always thought we need another striker anyway. So if we bring someone else in, then Dawson should go on loan. I'd love to see him on loan in the Scottish Premiership, though, not at the Championship level. Get him out there playing for someone lower down who can hopefully bang in goals against Sevco when they play him and whatever. But at the same time, I love that production line theory that we've been talking about. So before we signed O, I actually said I think it was on Axom on the weekend, or it was on our pod last week, one of them, that if Kyogo's the starter and Giakoumakis was to hang around, then I wouldn't mind Dawson coming in as that third string striker to develop under those guys for half a season, to then when one guy moves on in the summer, step up into that spot. So either option would work, but it all depends on what happens with Giakoumakis, in my opinion. If Giakoumakis ends up staying till the end of the season, then Dawson goes on loan. If Giakoumakis moves on and we don't bring anyone in to replace him other than O coming in already, then Dawson would be coming into the rotation there as well.
Andrew's mentioned exactly what I was thinking, and based on the back of your comments there, Jared, about Dawson training with the first team, which is, as far as I'm aware, not something he's done to this point. We've had Lawa, Vata, Olawayemi all training with the first team, and I believe the most recent one to step up was Summers. Is that correct?
Yeah,
there was another one anyway, and but Dawson's name has not been mentioned yet. So, say Giakoumakis does leave, do you think that's what we do? Do you think we need to urgently? Do you think we bring someone in loan to be the third option there, or do you think Dawson becomes the third option for training and for cover to be on the bench if someone gets injured?
A lot of clubs aren't going to want to loan you someone to be a third option.
You would have thought
if you're going to put a player out on loan, then they're going to be like, okay, we want him to go out and play. Yeah. So thinking of it that way, I think it'd be hard to get someone to come in at third option. If Giakoumakis moves on and you've got Kyogo and you've got O, then who is your third striker, a more senior one? You can play Maeda there if you need. You can play Jamesy there. Abada can cover the spot minutes here and there if need be. And you can still play Dawson in that development role for 6 months in the first team and come on here and there. If we're up 3-0, 4-0 like we were on the weekend, 5-0, whatever, put him on and get him a run, get him some minutes. It's the same with Lowell, as we're saying. Like, if, we're up 4-0, 65 minutes played, chuck him on for the last 30
Mhm.
minutes. You can do that with Dawson as well.
Martin O'Neill used to do it when we only had 5 subs, and now we've got 9. So there's like fewer and fewer excuses for managers to not be doing that. Like, I know Lawwell's been on the bench a lot of times and has only just made his debut on Saturday there. Similar with Rocco Vata, but surely when you're 4-0 up, 3-0 up, and why are we not giving these kids a chance? Like, I don't know. I think what's the reasoning? Postecoglou better than me. What's he thinking here? Is it that he's just giving Lawwell, he doesn't think Lawwell's ready, and he's just giving him that 5 minutes as a reward for effort? Do we think, I don't know, what's going on?
Honestly, let's look at it this way. If you break down our squad depth and our team, right, where are our strongest positions? I honestly think centre
Midfield,
back.
yeah.
I think centre back and central midfield.
Mhm,
They're our 2 strongest positions. So realistically, look at it. Rocco is a winger, so
mhm,
he's got more chance of getting in sooner.
mhm,
Dawson is a striker. We need someone to be a third striker. There's more chance for him there. You look at Lowell and you look at the options in front of him. Are you going to drop Carter Vickers for him? Are you going to drop Starfelt for him? Because there's 10.5, 11 million worth of players there. You've got Kobayashi that we've just brought in for what, like, as a free transfer, but he's realistically a 2-3 million pound player. You got him there. Jens is gone. Okay, he's out the door. So Welsh has been linked for years with other teams for 4, 5, 6, sometimes 10 million.
mhm,
You got those sort of players, right, in front of him. Who's he going to knock out to take that spot? That's why, like, bringing him in, drip feeding him the rest of this season makes sense for me, because who knows if Welsh is going to want to hang around next season if he's not playing week in, week out. If
mhm.
Kobayashi comes in and establishes himself above him, and then we've got Carter Vickers still and we've got Starfelt, is Welsh going to want to sit around for another year as a fourth option? Maybe not. So then you've got Dane Murray and you've got Lowell looking to push through, because Ange said he wants next season to be the year that these guys start to break through into the squad.
Mhm.
I'd spend the next rest of this season drip feeding those young guys that you've got high hopes for, drip feeding and giving them the chance to come in and be there. And if we're up 3-4-0, get them on for the last 15, 20 minutes, as we're saying, get some minutes into them. So then come next season, as Andrew says here, these young blokes might have to be the bench warmers in Europe, because we need to have a certain quota of Scottish players. And that's where I was headed with that little rant there as well. So we've got to bring them along. So
Yeah, I also wonder about, because obviously a big part of this, the Postecoglou system is around the psychology of the way the team plays, in the sense of, the "we never stopped" that is the kind of shorthand for it, but it's basically to do with maintaining the same intensity and effort levels from start to finish. And I guess if you get to the 65th minute of a game and he chucks on a kid, well, that's basically a permission, a tacit permission to just slow down, right? Isn't it? And that's not something they want in the psychology of the team. So I guess that's part of it too.
I get it, but then he's got history over here in the A League and in the LNSL of doing the same thing, bringing through those young guys. And then Ange can be brutal if he needs to. And if he brings a young guy in and puts him in, and they drop, and their standard isn't quite at that level, so everyone's dropping down to them, he will blast them
Mhm,
and get them to say, no, 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 we don't drop to their level. They have to raise to our level, or the door's over there. Go find another club.
mhm.
He doesn't muck around like that. He'll give these guys a chance. If they're up not, then see you later, and they'll get rid.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, great comeback. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of theories as to why, because like we all want it, but we also want to be what we want, that fourth goal. We want Turnbull scoring in the 85th minute. We want Moy scoring a fifth. We don't want to be going away from the game saying, we took our foot off the gas in the second half, or job was done at half time, kind of thing. We're there to be We want to be entertained for 90 minutes, and it's an amazing. As much as we love winning, it's amazing to just be entertained for 90 minutes as well.
The old Celtic Twitter's already starting to try and make up a chant for O. They've just put out another tweet. Oh, 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 it's magic. And I'm
I
just
was
like,
going to say that's
please,
the obvious one, isn't it?
please don't start. Just going through the comments quickly. Bring this one up. Dawson needs to be an option, or what's the point of having a B team? That's the whole plan, is to get these guys stepping in next season. So you got to start drip feeding them now. Andrew Galea, Gigi might be sitting out the rest of the season as the third option. If he doesn't watch himself, maybe. And then we've got Jake in the comments here. Morning from Scotland. Guess what? It's raining. Well, we're both cooking over here. So,
Dying.
and Michael's responded back. The technical term, Jake, is it's pishing. There you go.
Oh, on the subject of the B team, I only watched the highlights because that's all that's offered. But they look a lot better than they did a year ago. And that is, broadly speaking, it's the same players, and they look a lot better, like significantly better than they did this time last year. And they were playing one of the best teams in the league at the weekend.
It's what happens when you're playing against men week in, week out. Even if it's not at the same level, it does like strengthen you up and get you more used to the physical side of the football. Plus having, the link now with who's the manager again? I've lost his
Stephen
name.
McManus.
Stephen, yeah, I thought it was with McManus dropping down to do that, and then he's managing him on a similar sort of setup to the way Ange has got things with the first team. It's same terminology, same style of play, same sort of workloads they're doing, and they're building their way up. So of course they're going to get there. It takes time. It's like, look at any bloke you go to the gym. You can go as a 15-year-old and you're a scrawny little bugger, and you pump an iron and you're not seeing anything. But and a lot of people quit or whatever, and then all of a sudden it's like, all right, well, if you've been going for 20 years, suddenly you're the size of the rock.
Mm-hmm. And they're doing everything the same. It's even stuff like getting the ball back in quickly. They're doing that as well. Like you can see in the highlights. So it's you're right that I think we were kind of apprehensive about Steve McManus taking that step back when Harry Kewell came in, taking a step down, we called it, but it seems to be a great decision. Like that Steve McManus has had a year with the first team getting the philosophy down pat, and then he's taken it down to the B team, and it seems from highlights to be working, and hopefully we'll see it as part of the A team next year, if not
I hope
next
it goes
season.
further than that, though, Sean. I hope that it's okay. Andrew's got the thing with the first team. He's passed it on to McManus, who's doing that at the B team. I hope at the same time that he's also teaching the academy coaches so that it comes through from under 12s, under 14s, under 16s, under 18s, all the way through.
Yep.
So as a club, we actually finally have a philosophy, and it doesn't chop and change if the manager changes, where we go from Neil Lennon style to Ronnie style to Rogers style, back to Lennon style to Ange. How many changes have you had there in styles and ways they go about it? So for me, I think the only one that was a smooth transition was when it went from Ronnie to the Rat, for the simple fact that it was a similar style and Rogers just took it to another level.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. And that's kind of why some teams go for the director of football thing, with the idea being that a director of football is going to have more continuity than the first team coach, the head coach position, which is often recycled quite a lot in the modern football. And they do that in the NFL, where they'll have the head coach will change pretty semi-regularly, but the general manager, not the coordinators. That's a different issue.
Change even more,
but the general manager will stay pretty consistent for a longer time, and that's the idea, is to they'll have the more holistic viewpoint.
Last two topics, Sean. We'll duck over it quickly. Josip Juranovic has departed Celtic to Union Berlin. Initial £7.5 million plus add-ons. Total of the value of the transfer is up to £10 million. I'm just going to say I have two thoughts on this. The first one is the fee is a diddy fee compared to what we all thought we should be getting for a player of his quality. But at the same time, he's come in, he's stuck to form, he chops and changes his jobs over and over and over and over, like cut clubs every 18 months to 2 years. So it doesn't surprise me that he's moved on now after 18 months. It's his finally got himself up into one of the top 5 leagues. Good luck to him. Off you go. Do well, and I hope we have a big chunky sell-on fee.
Yeah, but yeah, I guess there's a potential for sell-on. I don't expect. Obviously, he's not going to move in the summer, but he could in a year and a half. He could end up at Dortmund or Munich if he rips it up in that league. And I would imagine that's part of that rather hefty kind of sell. The contingent fees is probably to do with, at least a big part of it, to do with whether Union Berlin get into the Champions League or not, because they're currently sitting third in the Bundesliga. So I would expect I'll be supporting Union Berlin for the rest of this season, assuming we'll get financial kickbacks from that.
Crazy, isn't it, that they're that high in the league?
Came out of nowhere. I did not know about that until they signed Juranovic. Did not know.
I hadn't even looked at the Bundesliga for ages. Like, I used to work at a company whose global head office was in Bremen. And so, like, I've always had a soft spot for Werder Bremen because one of the people I worked with, Matt, is like, she's actually one of like second or third string on their capos. They've got like a chicks active area, and it's all girls who sit in the bay and they just like have their own active supporter bay. And she's like pretty high up in that I worked with for a few years back. And the fact that they're green and white, and a friend of mine was there, I was like, cool, I'll keep an eye on them. And I didn't realize they were that high up in the league as well. So the Bundesliga, you look at the ladder at the moment, it's completely out of whack to what I thought it was.
Same. Yeah. Apart from Bayern Munich being on top as usual.
Oh, it's stock standard though.
Yeah.
All right. Last thing before we discuss the game on the weekend is with Frank Lampard getting sacked by Everton and the rumours that West Ham might be sacking Davy Moyes pretty soon. The Scottish Hun is at it again, trying to unsettle all of us by claiming that Ange is linked with both of them. Here we effing go. That's all I have to say on that. Like, Ange has come out and given it a bit of the kibosh, saying that, you know, as long as we want him here, he'll stay. So I trust Ange, but yeah, let's see how much they try to rattle the cage until a manager's appointed at Everton.
Or, well, yeah, and the next one I'm sure will be Leicester whenever Rodgers gets canned there. And I think pretty much every time a Premiership team cans a manager, which is going to be like, what, once a month, basically? Somebody gets sacked.
Slaughter season's coming up over there with the transfer window closing. Once it closes, give teams a month, and then they start just laying everyone off.
Yeah, and they're hardly going to get linked with Robbie Nielsen, so it's going to be whoever's the best manager in Scotland, or whoever's the manager that's got a team overachieving in Germany or Spain. I'm sure Union Berlin have got their manager going to be getting linked with, etc., etc. Like, it all kind of lacks imagination, these stories, and that's one that we're going to see a lot as long as we are being successful. So I'll take the compliment and kindly jog on, Everton. I would be sad if
your team.
Yeah, I don't want to say that because they've got a massive history, but like, if anyone less than, if it's someone that's not going to challenge for the title, I'd be sad. That I'd feel disappointed and let down by Ange going. So like Arsenal, Tottenham, Liverpool, Chelsea, Man United. Is that it? Is there Man City? And anyone outside that, I'd be disappointed.
Ange isn't going anywhere till Pep decides he's, you know, going to retire, and then he'll go take over for Pep. There you go.
Possible.
I've said it.
City group, possible.
So Mahesh's comment here, Ange's not going anywhere till he gets a result in the Champions League.
Yeah, and look, EPL teams will happily appoint a manager in their 70s, so I don't think there's times against Postecoglou in that sense either.
And then we've got Michael Ross. The Toffees are in a very sticky situation, so I don't see Ange going there. I see what you did there, mate. Toffees and sticky, well played. Well played there. And then Andrew Galea, not many clubs can give an Aussie manager the chance to play Champions League. Ange loves it, and he's not going anywhere in a hurry. That's my thoughts as well. So what we'll do is we'll leave that topic there. Celtic versus Dundee United, the SPFL on Sunday. What are you expecting to see, Sean? Is it going to be another 9-0? What are your thoughts?
I doubt it. Dundee United have been a lot better recently. They've certainly tightened up at the back, and they kind of play this style of football where Stephen Fletcher's a bit of a target man, and Tony Watts kind of in support, playing kind of coming in the wings. They've got Dylan Levitt's a playmaker, so they're kind of much more aware of their strengths now, and they do play to that. We could win 3 or 4 now, but it could also be a tight game. It's hard to really say in advance, especially with the weather being so inclement. Personally, I think it's going to be pretty similar to the game where we won 3-0 last year, but it was 2 kind of late goals that made us comfortable in that one.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at it now going, I was having a look there in 10th in the ladder. 1 loss, 2 draws, 2 wins in their last 5. And the game's being played at Tannadice. So, yeah, it'll be good to see what sort of a challenge we get there. But yeah, I think we'll win 2-0, 3-0, something like that. I hope we keep the clean sheets going, but I think we'll win by a couple of goals, but not going to flog them or anything.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a good run of clean sheets. What's that, 4 games in a row?
4 in a row. I think it's 4 in a row at home and overall or something like that, or 5 in a row at home or something like that as well. But even though we're on the road, who cares? It's still a bit of a run going. So yeah, it'll be good to see what happens. Let's get up there, get another win, 3 more points in the bank, and yeah, happy days.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there was a comment here from Michael Ross that he asked earlier, when is the Asian Cup? Because with all these signings we got at the moment, I can understand the question. So the Asian Cup in this year is from Friday the 16th of June to Sunday the 16th of July. So for once,
so
not during the regular season, it's during the international break, which is pretty handy because usually I know when Australia hosted a few years back, it was like in the middle of January or something like that when the leagues were going. It's kind of like the African Cup of Nations, the way they normally do it, where it's not an international break. They just play it when they want in the second half of the season and send us all your players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that should work out nicely for us because that's probably our preseason. So I guess the players can just get their preseason over there and come back to us match fit. That'd be nice, actually. Because we don't have, if we win the league, we won't have any Champions League qualifiers. So that'd be nice too. 16 league games left, and if we win, 13 of them, that's us champions, something like that.
Yeah, pretty much. So I've got a couple other things I'll put in here. So Strangelove the Doctor. I keep missing the show live. Keep up the good work, fellas. Come on, mate. Hit that notification bell. You're watching it on YouTube. I had to say it. No, I appreciate you tuning in, as always, like each and every one is. So, thanks for tuning in. And then we've got Michael Ross. What's your thoughts on the standard of the SPFL if Darvel can beat Aberdeen?
I watched the highlights of that game, and Darvel dominated the first half.
Absolutely destroyed them.
And their pitch was amazing. Mate, that's 6th tier of Scottish football, and their pitch was better than Celtic Park. I'm not even joking. It was sensational, and it was grass. Because I was expecting to see some rubbish plastic effort, and the pitch was outstanding. I was so surprised. I'm not surprised Aberdeen didn't know what to do on a good playing surface and with their tactics. But yeah, I was so shocked at how good Darvel were in the first half. I seen that. Thanks, Strangelove. Contradicting me there.
Comment. I'm gonna have to bring it up now just to contradict you. Darvel are a dog shit football team, and without the ref chopping off a perfectly good goal and allowing those thugs to boot the Dons off the field, that would be nothing. I watched the entire game.
Fair enough. You watched the entire game. I just watched the highlights, but they dominated the first half in the highlights in terms of chances created.
All right. So what we'll do now is we'll wrap up the pod. We've got our final thoughts to come, but before we do that, if you haven't already done so, look up Celtic Down Under on Facebook. We've got a Facebook group. Join it. We've got a page. You can like it. The podcast will go live on there. Our Instagram, our Twitter, at Celtic Down on both of them. We've got our YouTube channel. You can check that out. We've got merch available on www.celticdownunder.square.site. T-shirts, hoodies on there. Flags behind me. Got a bunch of them for sale as well. Send an email through or a DM or whatever through to us on the social media if you want one. We'll sort it all out for you. Other than that, Sean, your final thought?
I believe last week I recommended that people watch the Netflix show Russian Doll. Well, yes, watch season 1. Do not watch season 2. Absolute garbage. So I'm just walking back that
It's
recommendation a little bit.
redacted it.
Yeah,
Redacted. Happy days.
yeah. Chuck it
All right.
after season 1.
My final thoughts. Trying to come up with one that's not going to be controversial, but yeah, final thoughts. Just give your parents a hug. There you go. Tell them you love them. Got some stuff going on again with last things from my mum who passed last year. So yeah, it's a strange time. So just give your parents a love, give them a hug, tell them you love them, and yeah, hail everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Hello. I am so sweaty.